What's up, everyone, and happy Powell Day. About 59% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green, and the market broke brand new all-time highs yet again today. The S&P 500 actually closed above the $5,400 level for the first time in history, so that was pretty cool to see. As we've been talking about over the past couple days, we did have some pretty important inflation data released today, so of course we're going to cover that. And as you already know, we're definitely going to talk about what happened with the man, the myth, the legend, Jerome Powell today at the FOMC interest rate decision. We have a lot to talk about today. We have some pretty awesome charts, and towards the end of the video, we have a $1.3 million big money play. So we have a lot to talk about, Tom, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah, today was a pretty crazy day in the stock market, and guess what? New all-time highs are here. Early in the morning, Mike, it was pretty awesome, right? We actually started the day out with some really good numbers with the CPI data. As we can see here on the chart, the inflation rate year over year actually came in under expectations by 0.1%, so that was a good sign. And the core inflation rate came under expectations by 0.1 to 0.2%, depending on if you're looking at the consensus or the forecast. So that was good to see there, Mike. And a lot of people this morning were very bullish on that CPI data. And as you can see, the SPY went on a massive run, right? The SPX gapped up, and we saw a whole bunch of great movement out of the S&P 500, just out of tech stocks in general. There were a few out there like ARM, NVIDIA, and others that ended up being extremely green today. ARM was amazing, Mike. They were up 8%. The SM bot was actually killing it with ARM pretty much all day. But looking at the inflation from this morning, it was good to see the CPI data come in and get us started off on a positive note, right? At the end of the day, though, inflation still isn't the best. It was good to see it start to subside a little bit, but overall, this is very good news in the short term, and the market definitely loved it this morning. I only wish it would have loved the Powell speech later in the day.
That's what I was just going to say. It's like you look at the market and pre-market, and it was all sunshine and rainbows, and everything was just ripping to the upside. But once Jerome Powell started to speak, things got a little bit choppy. So what actually happened at today's FOMC interest rate event, and what did Powell say to actually make this the market this choppy?
Yeah, so Mike, everybody's been asking themselves, like, hey, what's going to happen? Are we going to pause? Are we going to cut rates? Are we going to start to raise rates? I mean, if you're saying raise rates right now, you better put on the tinfoil hat. But everybody out there is talking about cuts here in the short term, Mike. And the big thing people right now are really looking at is what are they going to do in the future, right? And whenever I look at Powell today, he did say that they were still going to assess the data. They were going to see everything that came in. So for anybody expecting anything like groundbreaking, we didn't really get anything like that from Powell, and the market didn't really react too well. But looking at the dot plot from the Feds, they're actually looking at a 5.1% median on where they're looking at that federal or where they're looking at that rate to be. And Mike, 5.1% would put us at the end of this year right at one cut. So I think that that's very interesting. Right now on the FedWatch tool, they're actually pricing in 2 cuts this year. The first one coming in September and the second one happening in December, right at the end of the year. So very interesting there. Maybe we'll see the way the market's pricing this in start to change a little bit over the next couple days, obviously as it digests this news with Powell. But nonetheless, Powell did indicate there will still be one cut this year. It's just, I hate to say it, Mike, he's still playing everybody in a way. They're saying, we're just going to assess the data. So like if inflation changes next time, he could change his mind.
Exactly. And as we look at the market over like the past couple months and the past couple years or so, it certainly hasn't been a bad thing that Jerome Powell has been slow playing everyone. As we all know, the war against inflation hasn't been completely won just yet, but the signs are looking better and better by the day, which is great to see. And Jerome Powell even acknowledged that. So that's awesome. But as Tom alluded to, there was no interest rate movement at all today. They kept rates the same. The Fed is expecting 1 rate cut for the year, and the market's expecting 2. Now, with that being said, the market has been pretty aggressive with its rate cut expectations all year long, so you can't necessarily trust it completely because it's just been wrong all year. But looking at the market right now, we're right at all-time highs, and a lot of people have just been like begging and waiting for this next rate cut. So we have a pretty interesting chart right here that basically shows what the stock market has done historically when there were rate cuts within 2% of all-time highs. We could see that this has happened about 20 times since 1980, and every single time this happened since 1980, the market was higher a year later. So that's pretty good to see. And, rate cuts are not fully in the bag just yet, but the talk of them is getting closer and closer. So I figured I'd share this chart because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people out there say, well, oh my gosh, why would the Feds ever cut rates when the market's at all-time highs, right? And I know that there's a lot of, what would we say, Mike, like Monday morning quarterbacks, right? There's a lot of people like that out there that really think that, but, this is very interesting to see that when they do this, that the market actually has that 100% positive number on that 12-month return. That is extremely interesting. The only negative I do see about this is that a lot of these were back in like the 80s and 90s. Since 2000, there hasn't really been a lot of examples of this, but I guess that's just the only negative here. At the end of the day, it's very interesting data, especially for the people who just think that, that would be like one of the most terrible things ever that they could do.
Yep, so we shall see. But another stock that we have to talk about quite a bit right now is Apple. So this stock has just been on a tear over the past couple of days. Out of nowhere, just rocketed to the upside, and it definitely turned a lot of heads yet again today. And Tom, some people won't even believe this, but for a second there, it was back to the world's most valuable company. So that was pretty crazy. Apple has overtaken NVIDIA just yesterday, and they overtook Microsoft for a second today, but they're just fighting for that first place spot. So either way, Apple's going ballistic right now. Basically, they just started rocketing up off of I guess you could say, optimistically perceived AI news. And, once the stock starts to move higher, you just have the whole crowd just rush into it and push it up even higher from that point. So, Tom, looking at Apple stock right now, it's pretty close to all-time highs, and it has some pretty strong resistance overhead right around this 220 level.
Yeah, it really does. 220 is such a major level whenever you start to look at Apple's chart. And Mike, today, right at the end of the day, it actually wiped out a bit of the sellers there. And you can see on the book map here, right where those sellers got wiped out. And, we don't always showcase these huge moments in the market where these sellers end up getting wiped. So I figured I'd show that because that actually ended up being like right around the high of day on Apple. And I know a lot of people were talking about 220 almost all day long. So, if you were like playing Apple up or something today, that could have been like a good target to the upside, just a good level to watch for, ended up playing out pretty perfectly up there as resistance. So shout out to Bookmap once again. These levels are awesome on Apple. For tomorrow, Mike, it looks like 220 and 225 will definitely be on the radar. There's like 144,000 shares at 225 if you're going to play it up. But I love to see that upwards momentum out of Apple, and even Affirm, Mike. Affirm continued up pretty well too, as they had that good Apple news yesterday.
True that. So looking at Apple, Affirm, and all these other, I guess you could say, strong moving stocks in the short term, the more pressure they put on the recent highs, the better these setups become. As we look at a stock like Apple over the past couple days, it has been putting an insane amount of pressure on its recent highs, which really squeezes shorts, and it makes the bulls a whole lot stronger and less tempted to sell out. So the same thing applies for tomorrow and with all stocks that are moving the strong way. But either way, keep a close eye on Apple, as this one has been going crazy. But Tom, even looking at the market or SPY as a whole right now, what would you say are like the main levels to watch for tomorrow for both directions?
Yeah, so SPY's at another all-time high again, guys. We're in uncharted territory. We keep talking about that lately, Mike, and it seems like every day we're pushing up to these new highs, and it's awesome to see. Where it's a great time, especially for people with the long-term portfolios. But looking at the SPY here, there's this 544 resistance in the short term. It did actually break above there very slightly towards the end of the day. Did pull back, though, as it broke. So I'll really watch 544 to the upside, maybe give or take around 10 to 15 cents on that. But to the downside, there was a lot of intraday resistance, or I should say support, right around 540.50 and then 540. Once I see that breakdown, I'm really watching for 536, 535 and then back down into that like 531 to 530 range. It's been pretty choppy, honestly, this week until we got this good breakout here. You can see the SPY was kind of consolidating under resistance, but man, that CPI data this morning really kicked the afterburners off. That's for sure.
No doubt about that. And then while the CPI data is behind us, what else is on the economic schedule for the week?
Yeah, so we do have the PPI data 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow. Williams will speech. There's initial jobless claims at 8:30 a.m. as well. And then we will get the 30-year bond auction later in the day tomorrow. That can sometimes drive some price action right there. And then Friday, we do have Michigan consumer sentiment preliminary data for June. So that might be pretty big as well. But honestly, Mike, nothing's really going to contend with what we had to deal with today, right? Like the market's going to really try to digest what happened today, I believe, tomorrow morning, and we might start to see that clear breakout happen once again.
There we go. And then there were some earnings news. Broadcom, ticker symbol AVGO, reported after the bell today, and they just rocketed to the upside after they announced a 10-for-1 stock split. So they're joining the stock split crew along with NVIDIA and Chipotle. So that's pretty good news, and keep a close eye on this stock for tomorrow. But Tom, let's jump right into some setups and predictions. A stock I'm watching pretty closely right now is Penn, PENN, to the upside. There was a recent big money play with this one, and it did very well today. The short-term price action has been pretty strong as well. So either way, this stock will be on my upside radar, not only for tomorrow, but even for like the next week or so.
Yeah, that was an awesome big money play. I'm glad to see it coming back well. Sometimes the big money plays take a little bit of time, and this is a great example of that, right? Like, I know a lot of people were starting to give up on Penn here as it started to consolidate a bit, and, you got to really let these charts play out, guys. This is just a great example of that, so I'm really glad to see Penn breaking out above that recent resistance and running up to new recent highs. With my first play, I'm actually looking at Palantir once again. They had a pretty good move today. They actually started to break resistance around 24, and initially this morning, like if you go to a 1-minute chart, they were looking pretty hot in pre-market, but they never really got back up. So I'm really looking for that re-break tomorrow back above $24, and I'll keep looking at this one back to the upside.
There we go. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is JP Morgan to the downside yet again. So I talked about this one in yesterday's video, and it had a great continuation today, and it is still on watch to the downside. Basically, the short-term price action with this one has been getting more and more bearish, and the stock has a good amount of resistance overhead. Additionally, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks or so, some financial-related stocks have just been slowly selling off. Nothing like too crazy as of yet, but that industry or that sector of the market has been getting a little bit weaker. So either way, JP Morgan is on my radar to the downside.
Yeah, I don't blame you, Mike. Another bad move today, and on a day where the market's making new highs, no less. I know that the financial sector doesn't always follow the overall market directly, but it has a pretty strong correlation to SPY, but it was a pretty bad day in general, so I'll keep watching JP Morgan down as well here. With my next play, I'm looking at Snapchat. Snap actually had a pretty good day, up 1.73%. It's not up, 8% or anything like that like some of these other companies are, but whenever I go to the daily, they're starting to come up off this recent dip very, very well, and in the short term, I'll start to look for a retest of resistance around $17 over the next few days, so I'm going to keep watching Snapchat to the upside here as it starts to come up off of this recent support.
Sounds great. Well, it's now about that time for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have RCL to the upside.
Yeah, ticker symbol RCL, a pretty big cruise line out there. The cruise lines and airlines have been pretty hot in the short term, and RCL just started to break above recent resistance right around 157. So if they start to break above like 157.60 tomorrow, keep watching them to the upside.
All right, with the next one, we have Qualcomm also to the upside.
Yeah, a lot of these chip stocks are extremely hot in the short term. Qualcomm was up 3.2% today. They weren't up 8% like ARM or anything like that, but still a very respectable move by them. If they break out above 216.50, then watch them up.
All right, and then with the last one, we have TLT for both directions.
Old Faithful, right? And look at the move TLT had today this morning in pre-market. That was pretty crazy. It started pulling back a little bit towards the end. If it falls under 92.30 with some good momentum, I will watch TLT down. But if it happens to break above intraday resistance around 93.30 and 93.50, I'll watch it back up.
There we go. So we have the upside level for a potential move higher, and we have the downside level for a potential move lower. Keep TLT, QCOM, and RCL on watch for tomorrow. The stronger and more consistent the price action is, the better the setups become. So again, keep these three stocks on watch. And Tom, let's jump right into today's $1.3 million big money play. And we are looking at ticker symbol PII. So the big money put around $1.3 million into the 80 strike call options that expire on September 20th of 2024. These call options are right at the money. They have a good amount of time to them. And also, we can see that the stock is getting very close to a giant $70 support area, which is pretty interesting. Additionally, I'm sure many of you have already heard of this company, Polaris, but they do a lot with, I guess you could say, like off-road vehicles and jet skis and boats and ATVs and a bunch of stuff like that. So it wouldn't be all that unreasonable to think that there could be some increased optimism with this company heading into the summer. Either way, the big money is looking to be buying this dip, which is very interesting. So either way, keep a close eye on this one going forward.
Yeah, and that's a huge support that you mentioned down around 70. I'll definitely be watching that on the way down. Maybe we could snipe it even closer to 70, but there is a little bit of time on this. I wouldn't be surprised if it started popping off here either. There's been a lot of scenarios with Polaris where it didn't quite get to 70, but there were lots of hits like right off of like 75 and 76. So I'll definitely keep watching this one over the short term. I do like this one quite a bit, Mike. Polaris is a company that in general, they make a lot of really cool products. Some of those ATVs and stuff are insane nowadays. Even the price of them can get pretty nuts. So I'll definitely watch Polaris though. It looks pretty good heading into support. The big thing is with Polaris is, it doesn't really have like a big correlation to the SPY either. It's going to move in more of a mind of its own. And, that might be a good thing right now with how high some of these stocks are getting.
There we go. But looking at the market right now, we are seeing a whole lot of interesting movement. The market is cracking new all-time highs, what seems to be on a daily basis. Apple is seriously turning some heads, and Jerome Powell is adding his normal sprinkle of volatility into things. So it should be a pretty exciting next couple days. One thing is, if you are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. Our SM bot has just been crushing it lately, especially with Apple. It went crazy with Apple yesterday, as some of the call options attached to that one popped up by 700%, and today they popped up by 300%. So that was awesome. But Tom, while you're in the Discord, let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Crispy, who's been a great active member for some time now and has been doing pretty well lately. But if you guys want to get in on the action, check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. Doing that will give you full access to all of our bots. You could join our weekly live event, which is actually tonight. So if you want in, join up soon. It'll start at 9 p.m. Eastern time. You'll also get access to all of our big money plays and many, many other features. Essentially, if you're into short-term trading, it is the place to be. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's have a great end to the week.